Hey guys, it's Mike with Olo. Today we have a really cool episode where we're going to piggyback off of our 101 kind of series, and we're going to do cabinets and countertops 101, talk a little bit about some more items. Today we're joined by John with Viewpoint. He is our preferred cabinet installer because of his knowledge of the industry and so much more of the service you provide. So John, give us a little bit about what you do here at Viewpoint and what you guys provide as a service.
So at Viewpoint Design and Installation, we're a whole home solutions provider for cabinets, countertops, wall tile, flooring, installation, project management. As we like to say, from inspiration to installation. We do that both for new construction, remodeling, as well as the amenity center business.
Yeah, and you guys do an amazing job on detailed install. That's one of my favorite things. You know, we've gone down a path of trying someone else and always fallen back to you because of everything you provide. I mean, not only from the detailed drawings, but the detailed install, and your team in the field is far superior than anyone else that we work with. So can you give us a little bit about your background, how you became, got into the cabinet world and why you went out on your own?
Sure. I've actually been in building materials since 1994. Started off in countertops after about 9-10 years, then was in cabinetry for 10 years, or excuse me, almost 15 years. Then 2018 got into flooring as well for a few years. And then back, during the COVID year, back in 2021, just realized that there's a place in the market to service new construction, builders that are only doing 150 homes or so a year, where some of those that were already in the marketplace were doing 400, 1,000, and really needed you to have that volume to be able to do the business with them. We believe that there was an opportunity to fill a niche for the smaller, that I'll call it, for builders that are 50 to 100 homes a year, but also on the remodeling side. Just after being in remodeling for 15 plus years or so, you realize there's a better way to do it. And what the heck, it's COVID years, and getting older, why not just go all in and go ahead and start a business and prove to everybody that we think we can do a little bit better.
I mean, you proved to us that we know you can. And I think your years in the cabinet world, just the first time we met you, you opened my eyes to so many things in cabinets. And I think for a lot of our customers and just customers in general, building a house, picking cabinets, understanding what's going to go into the cabinets, the options that they might have is a little overwhelming. So today I kind of want to start basic, what's a door, what's the styles of the door, what is partial, the things that you taught us over the past 18 months, and kind of reiterate that to the customer. So let's start with just cabinet doors, and then we can go into construction of them and so many more options.
Sure. Well, at the basics, there's also there's partial overlay and full overlay doors, and the full overlay doors is exactly how it sounds. The full overlay portion of it covers the entire face frame. A partial overlay door, some may have heard it called a standard overlay door, that only covers a partial part of the face frame. So when you're stepping back and you're taking a look, a full overlay door really covering that face frame gives it a complete look. For a partial overlay door doesn't do that, right? It covers just a partial amount of the face frame, which these days is a little bit of an antiquated, but it's also a little bit of a cost savings. Full overlay, of course, is about 10 to 15% more. So not everybody can always afford that 10 to 15% more. So the partial overlay portion of that does help out the budget conscious customers. Now within doors itself, then you have slab doors. You have a shaker door, of course, which is the most popular right now. You have a miter door. So there's a number of different door styles that go into it that people are looking for. Most of the time, people really start at full overlay, but then also the finish. So is it a paint? Is it a stain? These days, shaker white is key, has been the most popular for 5+ years, probably going on 7 years or so, certainly down here in Florida. But we are still starting to see a comeback, if you will, in wood stains as well.
And color options, right? Some people just think it has to be one color for their whole cabinet set, but you can mix and match, and it's a great option.
Absolutely. It's one thing to have an entire white kitchen for cabinetry, but many people are wanting to get away from that. So you might have a stain in the island and a perimeter might be white, or just a mix of the colors there in general. Definitely going with one complete look in terms of the cabinet color is definitely something that's changing as the market and the trends also change.
And to pull back to partial versus full overlay, kind of how you explained it to us in layman's terms is, when you have a full overlay door, the gap is much smaller and you have to put hardware on there to be able to open the door, where with a partial overlay, it's not really a required thing because it has that angle, so you can pull open the doors and drawers, which helps on cost savings, right? If you're doing 500, 1,000 homes and you don't have to put any hardware in, you saved a bunch of money.
Absolutely. And in addition to saving the 10 to 15% for having a partial overlay door, you also don't have $100, $200, $300 worth of hardware that is in the entire house as well.
Yeah, so I think you have a really beautiful display of doors and styles and trends in here. So let's head over there and kind of look at some of the options.
Let's go.
Okay, so John, this is a beautiful display that you built here. I'm guessing you custom built this.
We did.
Yeah, of just showing the vast options of door styles, but also colors and textures that go onto it. So we talked about what a shaker door is. Can you kind of give us an example? This would probably be the basic shaker.
Yep.
But even within shaker, there's a million different options. So what do you see as the most popular, and what are some better options to look at in the shaker world?
So the most common is what you pointed out here, and where it's just got a slight little bevel on the inside of the door frame. You see it in another brand. These are different brands. Shaker there as well. But you can also get a shaker look where you see it's got a little bit more of a little detail there. That's not a straight angle that you see right there. You also have contemporary, this can be described as a shaker door style as well. We're actually starting to see a significant pickup in that door style, a little bit there as well, because like anything, it goes in cycles. The cycle of shaker has lasted a pretty long time. Many people are conservative, especially when they're wanting to take a look at it from, they want something that's going to last. They want something that is, in terms of trend, they want something that if they decide to sell the home in 3 years, they're still on trend and can actually get their money out of it. So, but that said, for those that are going to know they're going to be there for an extended period of time, we're seeing an uptick, and we're tired of shaker. We know there's more. We want to be a little bit different than our neighbors.
But this doesn't get you so far out of the shaker, so it's still going to be acceptable to most buyers.
Absolutely.
Even something like this. Now, when we talk about something that has a little bit more texture, a little bit more presence, something like this, what would you call this door style? And is that a popular style for people?
So that's a raised centered panel door.
Okay.
And the raised center panel door is more of a traditional door. So in the market, there's really contemporary, there's modern, there's transitional, and there's traditional. This would be more of a traditional door. Traditional doors probably selling less than 10%, maybe even less than 5% out in the marketplace, because more people, again, like the shaker, transitional, or the overall contemporary look.
Yeah, and you have a lot, like when you have that raised panel, this panel internally can be 100 different options.
Yes.
So how do you come up with the right design on the inside of that panel when you're talking? Obviously, it's so little that you're talking to, but like when you have someone who wants a raised panel, they can go here, they can go here, they can go here, down here, so many options. What kind of questions do you ask someone when they're asking for a raised panel?
So really, it's along the lines of a series of questions that we ask them in about their home in general. So we have 2 interior designers that do a fantastic job of asking qualifying questions. Part of the qualifying question is, what's your style? What do you like? How long are you going to be in the home? Do you see yourself turning it around in 3 years to where you want to stay potentially on trend to be able to help with that resale value? Or you're going to be there 10 years. And if you're going to be there 10 years, then get what you love, as we like to say. So it doesn't matter. Who knows what the trend is going to be in 10 years? So there's a series of qualifying questions plays into it, centered around what their preference, what their style. Do they like coastal, type of look? But also how they use their kitchens, and we'll get into probably a little bit more on on how they use their kitchen and what features and benefits they might want out of that kitchen.
And when you're talking about cabinets internally, do you typically see, like if you have more of a traditional style home on the exterior, do you typically have a matching cabinet style to the inside of the house, or do you sometimes have like a modern house with a more craftsman door, or a craftsman house with like a slab door like this one here, or do they kind of go together?
No, I would say it's if what you see in the exterior a lot of times is what it carries out inside as well.
It comes down to that basic design of what they like, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you have a raised panel, you have your shaker style, which comes in multiple options with thicknesses. You can see this one's much wider. And then you have this door. What's the reason of this? Is it stained that you see the gap between it, or is that part of the aesthetic?
So this look is an alternative material, and that alternative material can vary by actual cabinet manufacturer, but people are wanting to get a little bit more into a textured look. It's not something that is on the cutting edge of taking off and going to be the major trendsetter. But again, in the spirit of people are getting sick and tired of white shaker, the alternative materials really come in hand, and this is exactly one of them. That's basically 4 pieces that is wrapped material and then assembled together to give you your seams, but to give it a nice wood textured look when it's not wood. So what does that do? Instead of having an extra 15 to 20% cost of the real wood, it is actually being a textured material. It's an alternative material. That's going to actually be a money saver for folks.
Right, it's a really nice look as well. And then you can also do the same thing on this slab door as well.
Can, yeah.
And so you would say, would you correct me if I'm wrong here, the kind of main 3 are going to be like your shaker, then your raised panel, a more traditional look, and then your modern slab door styles. Do typically, so we have the cabinet doors, and then you have a drawer. Do they typically match, or is that something that someone has to specify with you?
No, the doors and drawers would match. So for drawers, and I should be careful there, because some people will actually want to match the shaker door with the shaker drawer front, but then there's some folks who'll be like, okay, wait, that's an extra cost, then let's just go ahead and go with a slab drawer front, which again, there's a couple different drawer fronts, slab drawer front or the drawer front that matches the door style. We're finding most folks want to go with at least want to explore the price and of going with one that matches the door.
Yeah, the most traditional way would be to have your door and then a slab door, a drawer. So is there anything that's like really kind of trending right now, color-wise, material-wise, style-wise, that you see is like really popular?
Yeah, I would say that wood, as I mentioned earlier, is really starting to make a comeback. So before the woods were more reddish, now they're kind of more of a grayish with some brown in it. So we're seeing anything like that, or certainly one down here that we're seeing from a wood tone. We're really starting to see a rise in that. That said, paints are still king.
Yeah.
And people are wanting to paint anything that they possibly can, anything meaning any color that they can. And some of our manufacturers actually offer custom paints. So pick a Sherwin-Williams color, we can paint it for you.
That's a great option to have, because I mean, the crazy thing is this looks overwhelming in some cases, but even behind the door, there are hundreds more styles, colors to choose from. Yeah. So you can really get as much as you want or as little as you want based on that budget that you have.
Absolutely. That's the key that you said right there, Michael. Budget is. So that's why we offer a variety of brands and styles and overall products, because we know that there's a wide range of overall budgets. Not everybody can afford a $50,000, $75,000 kitchen, $100,000 kitchen. And so we need to be able to match whatever price point their budget allows them to.
Yeah, and then once they kind of pick their door and their style, then they get to talk about all the functional stuff that goes behind it, right? We were talking in where we were standing earlier, there's pull-out trash cans and all these different options. So let's head over there and you can walk us through about some of the better functional designs that you suggest that people put into their kitchens.
Sounds great.
So we're in your beautiful kitchen here. Obviously not your kitchen, your showroom kitchen. But I think one thing we want to start with is just functional design. Obviously, this is a beautiful island, and it's got one feature when we talk about countertops that I want to come back to. You're probably seeing a lot of these massive islands coming into play. Islands are not getting smaller. That's for sure.
No, they're getting larger.
Especially with the depth of this one, it's really a good design. So when you're designing, how do you start with asking about how big of an island? Or is it really starting with the space of how much space they typically have.
It is about space, absolutely. And as someone once said to me, form follows function.
Yeah.
So function is extremely important, and the island is definitely part of that because, as you see here, and then we'll show you a little bit more, the island has a lot to offer within it.
Yeah, so let's start with this right here. When we talked about at the demo wall there, we talked about the drawer matching the door. This is a great example of it. Exact same look and style, but this could also be a slab.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, this just matches it, right? Mm-hmm. And that's when you take a step back and you're looking at it from a wider angle. It really, again, comes down to your own personal preference. And when your own personal preference, do you want everything to be symmetrical, right? That's part of the other piece of the design. It's not just on the drawer front matching the door, but overall, do you have drawer bases on each end so you can have the symmetry, and then base cabinets within each. So that's just one way of, again, the symmetry that we try to get through as a series of our qualifying questions.
And so there's so many options in here, and I love showing them because there's so much that people can do with cabinets. Yeah. And even just the fact that after, if you move in, there's pieces that you can add, like that one right there, which we'll get to. But let's start here. So we have the matching drawers and doors, and then you have a pull-out kind of spice rack, olive oil rack, multi-purpose, but this can be 10 different things, right? It
absolutely can. So usually a lot of times you run into, within a wall, cabinets come in 3-inch increments, right? In terms of the widths. And with that, you're going to have there's always a pretty good chance you're going to be off just a little bit.
Yep.
I got 6 inches of space. I got 9 inches of space. What do you do with that space? This is perfectly one of those cabinets. And this happens to be closer to a 12, but the overall point is 12, 9, 6, which, a standard 12-inch cabinet might not be ideal for most people, but it's a perfect use for this.
And so with that, kind of piggybacking off it, when you have, say it's a 12-inch space, but you actually have 13 inches, what's the next step to kind of figure out how to fill that gap?
So fillers, we try to minimize the fillers that are in there. So fillers are good for in between wall and the cabinet. Certainly on full overlay door styles, you have to be able to really have that space to be able to open the door, unless it's a frameless cabinet, which we offer both framed and frameless. But with having that 1 inch at minimum, 1.5, 2-inch gap in between, that again allows you to not only serve the function piece of it, allow the door to open, but also the form piece to be able to, okay, I've got 3 inches worth of space, or I've got 2.5 on that wall. Okay, well, let's put a filler of 1.25 inches over here, 1.25 inches over there. We try to minimize the fillers as much as possible. People want to really obviously maximize the space within their kitchen, so that's where they need the cabinets. And also the look piece of it, cabinetry and other decorative things is better than a filler, but fillers serve their purpose.
And that would be when you have the space. It just depends on what you have.
That's right.
And so we have some drawers out, really neat too. 2 different drawer styles, right? You have 3 drawers with kind of 2 same size drawers and a smaller drawer, and then you have the double drawer basin here, which you could do, it's here because of this, but you could do it in any other situation. If you wanted 2 or 3, you can make that choice.
Absolutely. So we chose to have the 3 drawers flanking the 2 drawer for, again, symmetry. Mm-hmm. And a lot 3-drawer cabinets or even 2-drawer cabinets are extremely popular these days. We chose a 3-drawer on the outside to allow the 2-drawer in the middle. The 2-drawer in the middle you've got your mechanics, obviously, of your cooktop that are going to take up a portion of that. If you had a 3-drawer right in there to begin with, you wouldn't have a working drawer. Mm-hmm. You would have a false front. So why have a false front when you can actually have a functioning 2-drawer cabinet? That we had to notch out a little bit for the mechanics in there. And then inside this, we have a peg drawer organizer. So it's one of the many interior organizational items that we offer. And this allows you to put your pots, pans in there. And these, you just adjust it accordingly. And you could take these out and adjust it to whatever space or whatever shape you need for your pots that are going in there.
And your homeowner could just be like, you provide them with 10. If they needed 15, they just go and buy them, or they call you and ask for 5 more.
Exactly right. And the 3 drawer is a little bit nicer than having just a standard base cabinet. Not that there's anything wrong with like a standard base cabinet, but within a 3 drawer, it just allows you a lot of additional space to put a number of different things in there, whether you've got your deep pots, whether you want to put dishes in there. Some people put their dishes in there. So 3 drawer tends to give it a little bit of a more decorative look, but also definitely has its function.
Yeah, and even if you don't have this spice rack here, I use my top drawer as a spice rack. So
absolutely.
That's what a lot of people do, I'm guessing. So another really great feature of kitchens that we have standard with you is garbage pullouts. And I think the layout of this is really good because you're in between 2 of the most functional areas, used areas of the house. Yeah. Is that a pretty good trend for you guys to have garbage pullouts and then to put it in this kind of really busy location?
It is. So maybe like in many industries, our industry has guidelines.
Okay.
It's not codes, but they're guidelines, and a working triangle is good. And that would be for your cooktop, for your refrigerator, and for your sink area. So that's one reason why we did it. Number 2, we put the trash can right there because, we try to think logically for people. And if you're standing at your sink and you're scraping off food into the trash can, you rinse, then you put into the dishwasher, which is right to the other side of it. So it's basically, you're just going like this. There's many times where we've seen other builders that would actually have the trash can on the other side of the dishwasher. Well, if you have your dishwasher door open, how are you going to reach the trash can on the other side? So unfortunately, those are things that aren't always thought about, but that's why we're here. Our designers will help folks think about things that they may not be thinking about, or to use your phrase earlier, it's overwhelming. And there's so many different things to take into consideration, and that's why you hire a professional, and we have that team to be able to do that for you.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite features of all kitchens that we do with you guys.
One other thing I'd like to point out here too is the soft close glides. So there are non-soft close glides and soft close glides. So soft close is pretty much standard for many people, but again, for those that are budget conscious and just want to save a few $100s, and depending on the number of cabinets they have, they'll go with non-soft close. But soft close is just nice because it's just smooth, brings it home, and then the same thing applies to also for hinges on doors as well. So you don't have to worry about slamming it. You don't have to worry about shutting it hard. You just shut it a little bit and it takes care of itself from there.
And sometimes the doors come as soft close, but the drawers don't. So you want to make sure that when you are in that design process to ask what is part of that soft close package.
Great point. Yeah.
Because we've run into that a few times where we've had to remove glides, put them on because we set the expectation of it's soft close, but it really, that product was soft close doors, not drawers.
Yeah, great point.
And on this door itself, this is a dovetail door where sometimes that's not the case based on the quality. Can you explain to us what some of the benefits of a dovetail drawer is?
So the dovetail drawer allows it, just like you see maybe within regular furniture, like whether it's your bedroom furniture, maybe that you see that kind of finger and groove tight, material. That's going to hold up over time versus just a drawer box that is stapled to the front of it. Mm-hmm. That staple, we've get customers all the time. Maybe not all the time, but we frequently get customers that come in that will have gotten the basic from the builder, and whether it's through their own wear and tear, or whether it's just years of use, or maybe in some cases abuse by the homeowner, where that staple drawer just snaps off and the staple comes apart, and then next thing you know, they're holding a drawer front while the rest of the box is there. With a dovetail drawer front, you really shouldn't see that. Now, it comes with a limited lifetime warranty, so if it would occur, it's covered, but rarely do we ever see that.
And I would imagine that would be most likely the case, and you can correct this, is a total guess in the dark. If it's a non-soft close drawer and it has the stapled on front, it's going to slam up against that, which would cause a little bit more damage on it.
Yes.
Where with a dovetail, if it's non-soft close, it would hold up a little bit more.
Agreed. Yes, you're correct.
And so while we're talking about dovetail versus others, some box construction, I get this question a ton. Are they full plywood? Are they MDF? What are your thoughts on the design of the box and how do they stand up to the Florida market?
So we do offer all plywood construction, which means the entire box is all plywood. And then we do offer an engineered wood. Those are the two types that are mostly out there. You can get into MDF for the doors versus a solid wood in the doors, or even the alternative materials like we were talking about earlier. So from a box construction standpoint, from plywood versus an engineered wood, there are I'll call it an older school of thought that it's particle board. If it gets wet, it's going to fall apart. I got to have plywood. Okay, no problem. We'll sell you plywood. Plywood typically is about 25% more. And we've seen it, and I worked for a cabinet manufacturer for 15 years, and we worked with a product development team where we've actually put the engineered wood in a tub of water and a sheet of plywood on a Friday and come back on Monday to see what it is. Look, if it's soaked and if your flood is that bad or damage is that bad, either one of them is going to need replaced. One's not going to hold up on the other. But for some folks, it's a peace of mind to know that they've plywood and they're in a financial position to be able to afford that extra 25%. But right now, even in Florida, where people think humidity, people just think the overall wetness and all that, we sell 90% engineered wood.
And that's kind of what we set the expectation with. Like, if your house floods, there's bigger issues.
Yeah.
Hopefully your insurance covers it, but just because it's one product or the other, it's not gonna change the needle much.
Yeah, agreed.
So then we have other things. I think this is one of the things we talked about with like adding stuff later, right? If you had a standard drawer here or standard cabinet, it would come with a shelf. That shelf can either be half or a full shelf, depending on the manufacturer and the specifications of it. But you can always add things like pull-out drawers later. How hard is this to add later? And where do you kind of suggest people put these pull-out drawers? Because I think this is great. This is an awesome addition.
Yeah, well, first of all, I suggest that they actually get it through you, not aftermarket. But for those that want to get it, aftermarket, it's not challenging to order them and to have somebody like us come in. It really kind of depends on their overall ability, in terms of handyman, whether they can install that or not. It's a couple glides and the box itself.
Yep.
Where we recommend actually putting it, certainly close to areas where it's near the refrigerator or maybe even the oven. The reason I say that is because everyone's got a Tupperware drawer.
Yep.
And the Tupperware drawer is to have rollout trays, right? You can easily pull it out, quick access, get it. For those that have younger kids, that might have small cups where, again, it's at the kids' height, so the kids can't get up on the wall cabinets. So down here is where we've got small plates or small cups for the little ones, and those are really helpful to have in the rollout trays because we have a cabinet over here, and it's a half-depth shelf, and with the half-depth shelf, it serves a function because you might be able to put tall pots in the front piece of it. But if you don't have any tall pots up in there, or your tall pots fit in our 2-drawer or 3-drawer, well, then anything you want on that back shelf, you're gonna have to get on your hands and knees to get in the back of it, to get back. Versus a rollout tray where every day you could just open it up and close it, and for pretty minimal cost. So we recommend anywhere there are base cabinets, we highly recommend putting as many rollout trays as you can, especially if you get to, north of 50, 55-year-olds, 60-year-olds who are redoing a kitchen or buying a home. They're not going to want to get down on their hands and knees. No. Maybe 20 or 30-year-olds aren't going to want to do that.
I don't want to do that. I'm in my 30s. And even what you said about this creates like a pseudo kids pantry.
Yeah.
Like I like the idea of like cups and stuff, but like my kids, you now have a specific snack drawer and you can put what you want. They don't need to go in the pantry.
Yeah.
You don't have to go and the world's their oyster. This is what the snacks are. I see that as a great option for so many different things.
Dad, that's my cabinet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they would claim it.
Sure. Love it. It's a great point.
And so we talked about half depth shelves, but you can also do things inside of the drawers, which create a lot of function. I mean, this is a really cool cabinet where you can create all your cutlery, like under 2 layers. You can have your fine cutlery, you can have your everyday cutlery, and then all your utensils and spoons and everything here. This is a really, really neat design.
Yeah, there's things that we call key essentials in every kitchen. Hardware is a key essential if you've got a full overlay. A trash can unit, as you described, is essential. I consider a rollout tray as essential. Here's another essential. You could go to a Bed Bath & Beyond or pick your, whatever department store and put a plastic one in there. That gets dirty. You have to clean it out however often. It doesn't fit, custom fit to the size of your cabinet. Well, here with a single layer or a tiered cutlery divider, it fits exactly to the size of your drawer. It's great for the use of, again, taller items or your actual everyday knives and spoons that go in there. So again, there's about 4 or 5 key essentials that we believe in that should be included in every kitchen. And that's part of what we help the audience or the overall homeowner think about, things that they not be thinking about. And through the qualifying questions of how do you use your kitchen? What do you need? Do you cook a lot? There are some folks that actually, they just entertain. They just want their kitchen to look great. They never even think about cooking a meal. And that's fine. We can definitely, cosmetically make it the best. But then there's others that, man, I cook a lot, I bake a lot, I entertain a lot. I need certain features and certain functional items within the kitchen. And these are 2 of them.
That's a great question to ask someone. And then talking about essentials, I personally think a Lazy Susan is an essential.
Yeah.
Others in the building industry don't, but to create a dead cavity is such a waste for something so nominal of a cost for me. This is probably the coolest Lazy Susan I've ever seen, where you can spin it in all directions, but also it's got a pull-out tray in it. It's the first I've ever seen this, even though I've been to your showroom like 50 times. So that is one of the coolest things. Is that super expensive to put into your house?
That in itself can get fairly pricey, but there are other examples like that aren't as expensive.
Yep.
So there's, as you called it, the dead corner, there's a blind corner, there's a lazy corner, kind of great names for corner cabinets. But I applaud you for thinking that way as a builder, for avoiding the dead corner, because at the end of the day, a dead corner is going to stop here, and it's going to stop here, and that's going to be unusable space. And depending on the size of the kitchen, you just lost a cabinet, and you just lost another 4 square feet, 6 square feet, whatever, of a storage space for that homeowner. And but when you get into a Super Susan like this, which this is one of the nicer upper end Super Susans, but there are 2 or 3 below that are very functional, great for everyday use without having to lose that dead corner or a blind corner, which a blind corner then essentially means this door would open and the cabinet goes back that way. Well, what does that mean? That means you got to get on your hands and knees to reach the back of here. And again, who's going to really want to do that?
I would imagine what goes in the back of that cabinet goes there to die. You're never getting back there to get it.
There's not much back there that you're using on a regular basis.
Anything else that you would say are pretty much essentials in the kitchen?
From a essential standpoint, no. I mean, we've got a beautiful glass that we're showing here.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that's essential, but for some folks it may be, because depending on exactly what they're showing. There are folks that with the lighting, they want to put they want to light up their cabinets, so they'll put interior lighting. And if you have interior lighting, obviously you got to show it off. You can't show it behind a solid door, so the glass framing would be something that we highly recommend. Essential, maybe not, but to some, maybe so.
And then when we talk about hoods, obviously this is a stainless steel Samsung hood, but sometimes people want to cover it. Hundreds of options that kind of caters to. There's obviously ones that are more farmhousey, more modern.
Right.
Are you seeing a lot of people covering the hoods? Or is it more of a kind of trend that's in the dying category?
No, we're seeing a lot of folks that are wanting to go more with a wood hood. Some are even wanting to go with a quartz hood,
cool.
To really get more kind of a decorative and really stand out look. There's there's just certain focal points we're trying to create within the entire home, nonetheless the kitchen. And those focal points are whichever entry point you can see, it's wow, there's another wow feature. When you turn, there's another focal point. You turn, there's another focal point. And with wood hoods, or even the quartz hoods, we're definitely seeing that trend where more and more people are wanting to go with that.
Yeah, we're doing our first one with you.
Oh yeah.
Up in Claremont.
Yeah.
So the last thing I want to talk about in this island is a lot of times your island is a single cabinet base wide with about 14 inches, depending on the builder, maybe 12 inches or 10 inches of overhang. This one, you have a secondary cabinet on the front. Is that super common? Is it becoming more trending? Where's that? Obviously, you get now 2 zones of functionality, but where do you see that kind of coming into place?
So we see it a lot in place because obviously in Florida, we don't have basements. And so storage is a premium. And especially for folks who are moving from out of state, they're not used to not having basements. So they need as much storage as possible. They use the back of the island and the cabinets on the back of the island, whether it's 12 inches deep, whether it's a standard 24 inches deep, they'll use that for extra storage. So absolutely, again, part of our qualifying questions is how they want to use their kitchen. Do they need that space? But we highly recommend trying to put at least a 12-inch cabinet, on the back of that. And it doesn't make your island, of course, if you've got to have enough space within that kitchen, but it doesn't make your island crazy depth-wise that takes you away from having a nice 12 to 13, 14-inch overhang while still having that function on the back.
And when we have this 12-inch cabinet on the back, from a building perspective, do you still need a pony wall, or does this hold the load? You can just go cabinet to cabinet. You
can go cabinet to cabinet. It depends if your plumbing's coming up through ground, straight through the bottom of the cabinet, meaning other builders with, I think, like many of yours, are through a knee wall.
Yep.
And then put the plumbing in the knee wall, put the electric in the knee wall. We definitely prefer that, but we can go through the bottom of the cabinet as well.
Oh, cool. And it's fully wrapped. I mean, when Kayla comes over here, you can see fully wrapped cabinet, matching doors on this side, and then we have a non-waterfall edge and a waterfall edge, which we'll talk about with countertops, which we can go over and do now.
Sure, sounds great.
Okay, John, so we're here in your cabinet display. It's very methodically laid out, as we know all too much. There's a lot of questions we get on quartz, right? What is quartz? What's the difference between quartz and granite? Why is this quartz more expensive than this quartz? They look the same. So let's talk about, at the beginning, what the difference between 1 cm, 2 cm, and 3 cm, and then how would they go wider than that on a quartz product. So this right here is a sample of 1 cm, right?
That is correct, yeah.
So this thickness would be what you would get with a 1 cm. Do you see a lot of 1 cm countertops?
We do not. More wall applications.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely not on countertops.
So most of that would be like walls, decorative walls, backsplashes, things like that.
Exactly.
2 cm is kind of your entry level thickness. That would be something like this. Oh, I forgot they all pull out. This is even better.
Yeah.
So this would be your 2 cm, and I can pull that up against another 1 cm sample so you can see the thickness difference of what that looks like. You're going to get a much wider plane on it. When you talk about 2 cm, why is 2 cm the basic, the kind of entry level cost?
It really kind of started off with in bathrooms, where people were wanting to use the 2 cm in bathroom, maybe 3 cm in the kitchens. So again, secondary bathrooms, people are looking to make a little bit more of a savings or potentially realize savings. So they'll look at 2 cm over 3 cm in bathrooms. Rarely, let me back up. I wouldn't say rarely, but very infrequently are we seeing 2 cm in kitchens unless they do a build-up edge and make it like a 4 cm. And I know we'll get into edging in a little bit, but occasionally they will have a 2 cm material in the kitchen that, again, you build up just the perimeter and the edge profile of it to get it to 4 cm.
And then 3 cm would be what you're showing here. The best example we have is this guy, which would show you the 3 cm. And so that would be, you can see thickness difference on this if I pull it out. So significantly thicker edge. on that product itself. Which, is there a stoutness? Is there a long-term benefit of having 2 or 3? Are they going to react the same?
Yeah, they'll react the same. Yeah. It's really a preference, and the market has just evolved. 2cm used to be pretty, common, as I mentioned, in the bathrooms. Well, now it's not uncommon, and in fact, most of the time we're putting 3cm in restrooms or bathrooms as well.
Yeah, even secondaries.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, kids' bathrooms and stuff.
Yeah.
So when we talk about like a basic white quartz, this would be your kind of entry-level white quartz.
Yes.
What is the main difference between something like this and then we talk about like a super high-end, going to come in a slab, right? This is price per square foot. This is a slab program.
Yeah.
So you're going to get to pick the slab, obviously the major benefits of getting that for your veining and getting it right. But what's the major differences between the construction of something like this versus Cambria? So
it's really kind of the looks, but also the manufacturer itself. So for example, from a look standpoint, we've got the slight specs that you can see here and there versus actually when you start to get into the higher end, you see more pattern. On the back, they would show actually a full slab piece of it. So or in this silestone, where you could certainly see the veining that is prevalent. And we've got a display over there that we'll be able to take a look at as well. So solids, colors with just light specks, to more pattern, to certainly more veining. Those are just the kind of the tiers and the levels as you start to go up in it. People at the end of the day, quartz came into existence because people are wanting something that wasn't as expensive 10 years ago as granite, because granite was pretty pricey. So quartz evolved, obviously turned into, it's probably been a little bit more than 10 years, now. But being able to provide a granite-like look at a more economical price, and the veining, certainly, which is still a very attractive piece of the granite. People really love that natural look. It's wild, it's inconsistent at times, and some people really think that's certainly a great look. And quartz, when you get into the veining, because they're emulating that, there's a price, there's a premium they'll pay for that.
And when we talk about granite versus quartz, do they react the same to heat? Because one of the main benefits of granite is you can take a hot pot and put it on there. Is that still the same with quartz?
It's not, and it's not with granite. So granite has fissures within it that are naked to the eye. You cannot see it. Obviously, it's a man-made, or not a man-made product, a product that comes out of the earth. You have no idea exactly where that fissure's at. You take a hot pot and you put it in the wrong spot where one of those fissures is at, and it will spider crack instantly.
Whoa.
And so a lot of people, and this part of our education that we have to have with consumers, is they think because I can do anything to it, whether it's granite, whether it's quartz. No, you can't. Quartz is the same way. It's not fissures, but it is still reactionary to heat. And so if you have too much thermal fusion there, because it's technically, occasionally fairly cold, when you touch it, you put a hot pot on there, it's going to react negatively to that.
So it's pretty much across the board.
Absolutely, we recommend hot pads, anything that is going to protect that surface or be a layer of surface between the countertop and the hot pot you're taking off.
Oh, you had to educate me. So when we talk about like styles and colors, what's the most common that you're looking for or seeing in the trends? And then, when do people typically go from like a price per square foot? Portrush is one of our favorites. But when do they break out of the price per square foot and then they want to look at slabs and choose that?
It's a great question. So a couple different answers. Number one, from a trend standpoint, like we were talking about earlier with white shaker cabinets, white and light grays are popular in countertops as well.
Okay.
Specifically the white base with maybe some gray veining, gray speckles, that would fall into it. We've got, one that you would see here, where you can see it's the white is the base with some gray veining, got even a little bit of gold. Gold is starting to have a little bit of movement in there, as well, as we can see here, and we can also see here with the gold. So at the end of the day, it's still mainly white with some gray, but we are starting to see some movement, with the gold. As far as Y square foot versus slab, So in the countertop world, slab is, we're going to be purchasing a slab, and maybe you only need 75 square feet. And the slab is that's going to be required 2 slabs, and 2 slabs are going to be 100 square feet. So there's an extra 25 square feet there. With the extra 25 square foot that is in there, we're going to pay for it.
Yep.
And then you're like, okay, well, where else can we use it? Well, we don't really have anywhere else to use it, so it becomes waste, or it goes back to the fabricator. So we've partnered with our supply partners to be able to actually offer a square foot program, to be able to say there's 44 colors, and within that square foot program, you're getting just exactly how it sounds. You're going to pay for what you get. So we're finding that folks will start with the square foot program, and certainly are interested in saving money, and will go through all the 44 colors. If they happen to find colors that they want, maybe for the kitchen, but maybe they don't find anything for the bathroom, because a lot of times folks aren't wanting to go with the same color through the whole house. Mm-hmm. So they'll have a little bit of variation. If they find something that they just can't find, or they can't find something in the 44 colors, then they'll come over to the slab and they'll say, you know what, we'll spend a little bit more extra money in our kitchen, maybe our primary bath, maybe have the same color to kind of maximize that yield in both of those. But for the square foot program, we'll save a little money in the secondaries, in the laundry room, because they don't need they just don't need the highest level of look or overall price point in those secondary rooms.
And so if they want to do a slab, right, say they really want to do this heritage and they choose this, and they have 25 square feet, is there a suggestion that you would put forward to them? Can they build a piece of furniture for it, or what do you suggest they use that for? Or is it just say, hey, it's gone?
Well, if it's a new construction, we try to say, is there another room where you weren't using it? Maybe you want to use it now because you wanted to go with 4 different colors in the house. Well, guess what? Can we narrow that down to 3, and we can try to use, some of that? Or how about a full height backsplash? Mm-hmm. Before, you weren't thinking about a full height backsplash. You were going to have a tile backsplash with just a 4-inch countertop or quartz backsplash. You've got an extra 18 inches for whatever long that run of the L shape is. That could certainly take up an extra 10, 15, 17 square feet.
Yeah, that's a great opportunity. As well as I've heard a lot of people use them for sills. In certain
absolutely.
Areas,
great.
Why
Great
not just use it somewhere else?
Right.
But most of our customers are staying in that price per square foot. With 44 options, there's got to be something for you.
There is a lot. Again, we've got the solid colors, we've got the small specs, but we've also, as you can see here, a lot of veining selections and options as well.
And so we talked briefly before we started filming this section about what they want to do if 3 cm, if that thickness isn't thick enough for them. What are their options?
So they can build it up, and they can go to a 4 cm. We've seen as high as 6 cm, but usually if they're going to build it up, they go to a 4 cm. So it would be a 2 cm within what they call a laminated edge with an additional 2 cm around it. Just beefs up the edge, gives it a nice little, more solid look when you step back and you're taking a look at the island or even maybe the entire kitchen.
Yeah, that's interesting. I personally have not seen one of those, so I'd love to see something like that.
Yeah.
And then we talk about edging. So on this, you have a really great example of what some of the edges would be. What's the most common edge you see? And are you seeing any crazy edging that's happening, or is it mostly just kind of like this straight eased and maybe a bevel?
It's just that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the eased, it's straight eased, which is the edge that you see right there. 80, 85, maybe 90%.
Yeah.
Then you get into a little bit of a 1/4 inch bevel that will go. Because what the eased edge, when you think about shaker doors, when you think about the slab doors, that matches that door style. People are wanting that overall look that they're going for in the entire kitchen, or maybe even in the entire home. They're wanting to mimic or actually complement the cabinetry and the countertops. And with that, allows them to do the eased, allows them to do a 1/4 inch bevel, maybe even as thick as a 1/2 inch bevel, although not as much. And those are all, in terms of the 1/4 inch, the eased edge, and this half bull nose, that is all actually included in our standard price. They get into a little bit more of an edging detail. They go to 1/2 inch bevel or a 3/8 inch bevel. That starts to actually have a little bit, of an upcharge, to it. But we have for 3 standard edges as part of our everyday price. and those standard edges represent 95% of what we sell.
Are you seeing a lot of the bullnose? Like, I feel that aesthetic is probably pretty.
We're seeing a little bit. I'd say it's in third place, but it's a distant third.
Yeah, far from it.
Yeah.
So let's head back to your kitchen and just finally summarize on kind of some of the options that they can do with a countertop.
Yeah.
Because I know one of the things that we kind of held back there was the waterfall edge, which
Sure.
I think is becoming very popular.
Great. Let's do it.
Walk us through, waterfalls are obviously becoming more and more popular.
Yeah.
Get the question all the time. I'm going to ask a really stupid question. You can tell me if I'm wrong. Is it always a 45, or can you dead end it to each other, or what's the best practice?
You can dead end it, but the best practice is 45.
Okay.
Absolutely all that long. That's a better look.
I told you it was a stupid question before I started.
No, there's no stupid questions.
So when we waterfall it, how much goes into this measurement, and how often is it? Have you ever had one that's wrong? Is it hard to do?
It's not, because you ultimately know what depth you're going to be doing your island, right? So from front to back,
Okay.
the height is going to be standard, right? You have 34-inch high cabinets. You have countertops on top of that. We typically say right around 36 inches. So you know what size you're going to need to cut it height-wise. So you know what depth your island is going to be overall. You know what height it's going to be with the cabinets. It's pretty hard to mess that up.
Yeah, I could imagine, but I'm sure there's people out there that are not as professional.
There are things that happen.
And so when we do, are you seeing, so what you have here is a great display of a half waterfall, right? Mm-hmm. The full waterfall would be both sides. And you can tell me if the vernacular is wrong.
No, you're correct.
So, what's more common? Full waterfall, both sides, half?
Full.
Okay.
So when we built our studio, I wanted to be able to show one or the other.
Okay.
And so not everybody is going to like that look. Not everybody can afford that look. So I wanted to be able to show them what it looks like if they don't choose another side. And we also use it as a little bit of a selling feature to try to convince, this is probably the look you want to go with. So that's why we have it on one side and not the other.
And so when you're doing a waterfall edge, what are some of the things that you need to think about when preparing for it? I think one of the things was, that inside corner, right?
That's a great call, yeah. So on the back side where you got your overhang, on this area right here, it's the back side of a slab. And when you have the back side of a slab, fabricator for your average countertop or for your typical countertop is not going to be polished on the back side. So when you have an island like that, you have the overhang and you have an exposed area, you absolutely have to polish the back side of that, because the last thing anybody's going to want to see is showing up and it's chalky and it's unfinished and it certainly doesn't match the outside piece of it. That's definitely one thing you have to take into consideration. Number two, when you get into veining, or colors that have veins, as we do here with Silestone's Ethereal Glow, that you've got to, it doesn't hurt to book match it. So be able to book match it, so when your veining continues, stops here, it actually can continue on, as you see here, and it goes on there. So a lot of people will want to see with that veining, at least those that really like the veining, whether it's on a waterfall or certainly when we get into the backsplash, that book match ends, so that veining doesn't kind of look choppy, if you will. It's a continuous veining look.
And so how hard is it? There's a lot of those stones. I'm going to use Portrush because that's one of my favorites. It's got big, fat blue vein, right?
It's beautiful.
And so if you wanted that vein to match across your countertop, which I would highly suggest because it would look amazing, you have that going, you got a waterfall edge. How hard is it to get that to bookmark down?
It's a great question. It really kind of depends on the size of your island. We were talking earlier about everybody likes the big island.
Yep.
The big islands is in. Well, you really actually got to not only take into consideration the color you're wanting to go with your countertops that matches your flooring and matches your cabinetry, but also what's the size that color is offered in. Slabs come in different sizes. Your standard size might be 54 by 124 or right around there. Others have jumbo sizes that are all the way up to 70, inches wide by, 135 inches long. Well, if you do a 10-foot island and your slab only comes in 10 feet, 120 inches, well, then that's going to be a problem, because you typically trim off the edges around when the slab comes in, so you're not a true 120. You're going to have to shave off a little bit. So that is definitely one of the considerations when you're doing your overall island, because most people don't want a seam. right? We could do it, and probably from an angle standpoint, you could do a seam right here. You actually, right there, and do it right there in the middle. But if you can avoid a seam, you want to avoid a seam.
Absolutely.
Because most likely, you're going to actually have a seam on your perimeter if you have an L shape, unless you just have it a couple of long straight tops. But if you have an L shape, you're going to have a seam. And different colors hide the seams better. The manufacturers, the fabricators, including ours, do a fantastic job of putting that seam together and tight to minimize that. But some colors, you just can't always completely hide the seam, and you can find it. So if you have it in the perimeter, you want to try to avoid it in the island if you can too.
Yeah, so this is a great example of the full waterfall on one side, no waterfall on the other. We were talking briefly about, there's kind of some ways to fake it to make it look bigger. Where you can kind of bevel the edge or do a 45 and have a piece come down, 4 inches so it looks a little girthier. Is that common for you, or is that more like super custom?
I think that's more super custom. We're not saying a lot of that. As we were talking earlier, the eased edge and the 1/4 inch beveled edges. There's also just a lot of other considerations to have there. You've got to actually come out a little bit more too, because you got to worry about that with the thickness of their, that edge. You got to worry about is your drawer going to be able to open? Is it going to catch it? Because your edging obviously comes down when you get into 4 cm and when your drawer is trying to open up. So there's just extra considerations and questions that we need to ask the client and make sure they're understanding of, because that could alter their cabinet.
Do you have to fur the cabinet up a little bit, or what would be the?
You can do that a little bit. We try not to, but again, it's infrequent that we do that. But if we need be, we will.
And then so the other thing that we can talk through is most of the time you get 4 inches of backsplash material.
Right.
And so when you're doing a full backsplash like this. How do you kind of prepare for that? And is this common for you guys to get the same material as your backsplash? I mean, it obviously looks seamless and beautiful.
Yeah, so that's one of the considerations. If we know they're going to want to do a full height backsplash, we absolutely will work with our supply partner to be able to make sure that we've got the material that will ultimately book match it. So for example, all of this could have come out of one slab.
Yep.
Right, because the slab being 54 inches wide and you've only got 25 inches of countertop, you have another 29 inches that you have to work with. So that allows us to be able to get it out of the same slab. So, you put it on its machine and you lay it out to be able to know that vein is going to cut there. And then when you just make it, it goes from this to this, and that vein then just continues up.
Yeah, brilliant way to look at it. So, I mean, you can see pretty seamless seam right there, pun intended. So it takes a lot of forethought into this. Now, do you ever match, because this is obviously 3 cm, do you ever go from a 3 cm to a 1 cm as the backsplash, or are you always trying to keep it the same thickness?
We've been keeping it the same thickness. Occasionally we'll get into some folks that will want to go 2 cm, but we're finding 1 cms may be used for a wall application, not necessarily as a backsplash, but maybe more of a decorative wall.
Or like a shower.
Or a shower area. We're definitely seeing that.
Especially, I mean, you probably would run into bigger issues when you have a shower that's got, it's pushed into the ground, so it's got a 0 entry, and then you got 12-foot ceilings. Then you got a seam at some point, right?
Yes.
Or they just leave the top open.
No, I mean, most people these days are definitely wanting to go with to the ceiling.
Yeah.
With their surround.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the 1 cm is getting very popular in the bathrooms. It's especially popular in our Utah locations in Idaho. They love the full length stone.
Yeah, nice.
We don't see a ton of that, but it's something that we didn't have a partner that could do it really until we met you. And we haven't taken advantage of it. So hopefully someone out there will want to do that. That'd be great. A great experience for us. So anything else with countertop that we have to kind of consider, look at, work with?
I would just say around the sink area. So, we've got many people either, whether they're building and they've come from a home that has a 50-50 or 60-40, they just don't like it. They're wanting to go more with a single bowl sink. So we're seeing that undermount stainless steel sink, but we know there's also granite sinks that are out there. So there are Kraus sinks that are out there that are certainly popular. But what we're starting to really see more, folks, is the workstation sink. And that workstation sink can go from 36. I've seen it, for us, we've seen it all the way up to almost 50-inch sink. And that workstation sink is a beautiful single sink that has a cutting board in there, has strainers in there, gorgeous, beautiful. The consideration there then for the homeowner is, do you want to dedicate that much of space to your sink? If you're going to do a 10-foot island and you know you've got a couple of feet for the dishwasher and maybe you've got a couple more feet or close to it for a trash can unit, and then you put in a 4-foot sink, so all of a sudden you're up to 8 feet of your 10-foot island in 3 components: the dishwasher, the trash can, and the sink base. So you don't have much room left over if you need storage or on the ends want some additional cabinet space. So again, great look, very versatile, very user-friendly. Just one of the considerations though is, do you need really, can you sacrifice that much space in your island just to have that sink the way you want it?
So believe it or not, the #1 upgrade that we sell, almost, I would say at this point, 100% of our customers have gone with a workstation sink.
Yeah.
They see it in the showroom and they go, done.
Yeah.
For the price, done. And actually, I think in 2 weeks, we're gonna do a video at Artisan Kitchen and Bath down in Winter Park.
Sure.
And they have the 4-foot. So when you're thinking about a 4 or a 5-foot, sink, what does that do to the cabinet design? Are you using 2 bases? Do they make a cabinet that wide?
Yes, yeah, they do. So depending on the manufacturer, they will make them all the way up to 48. If we need to go wider than that, then we actually then do put 2 cabinets.
Okay.
We'll put 2 cabinets together.
Yeah, to like 2 30s or something like that.
Exactly right. Yeah,
okay.
and you can, and you could easily just, we call scooping out the sides of the cabinet that you don't worry about compromising the structural integrity of the cabinet by just scooping out the sides of the cabinet and allowing that sink then to sit down where those sides were. Cut it down obviously all the way, but if the sink is a 9-inch deep sink or whatever, you're scooping out 9 inches or so, that won't compromise that cabinet.
And I would imagine that if someone is doing that wide of a sink, they're probably not going to have 1 dishwasher. So you've got to think about, this is 24 inches. It can't be in that base. This is it's got to be an 18-inch cabinet.
Yeah, it's 21.
And 21, yeah. So 21 inches. You got now 48 inches of dishwasher. What else are you putting on this island?
That's right.
Not much.
Yeah, and that's why we are finding the folks that are going with 2 dishwashers, they typically have a perimeter area, maybe a straight run somewhere off to the side that they're putting in
the second. Okay, so it's
yeah.
One's on the island for this kind of triangle, but then they got another one over here.
Yeah, because of exactly what we're talking about. Because unless you're going to have a 14-foot island, and most people don't have 14-foot islands.
Yep.
10, I'd say 10 to 11 is about mostly what we're seeing these days. I say most of what people are looking to go toward. There's still that 8-foot island, I'd say would be your traditional size island.
Yeah, and I think that the Ravenstone for us has a 10-foot island, so it's a really good. So anything else that you would want to throw out in the countertop world and kind of stone world for us?
Yeah, I would just say one additional thing to take into consideration is where your placement is overall and where you're going to this is a little bit of an eased edge, soft corner, because you're at that height, especially for folks that have the younger children. Nothing worse than having a corner that isn't eased on that side, and being the child just running right into that corner. So just whatever fabricator you're working with, or hopefully you're working with us, just make sure that you take that into consideration.
Yeah, well, I think this is a great overview of 101. If you want to learn more about cabinets, countertops, flooring options, really just a full remodel more or less, start with John, and then he can always find you. Or if you're going to buy a house from us, you're definitely going to get cabinets installed by you and countertops.
Yeah.
So
Thanks,
I appreciate your time.
It. Absolutely. It was great.
Once again, Viewpoint, all of his information will be in the bio below. And thanks so much for watching. We'll see you guys next week.